Federal government secures $158 million for agricultural development and value chain program.
It will serve as a steady pipeline of raw materials and ensuring our processors no longer grow for quality inputs.
Senate okays 2 of 4 tax bills ahead of reform.
The states and local governments prescribe the powers and functions of tax authorities and for related matters, third reading taken.
Hope for cancer patients as House of Representatives pushes for treatment subsidies.
Rising burden of cancer is causing a shortage of funding for cancer control with public financing.
In Nigeria today, we are getting updates on student loan scheme.
Well, you know, Jumai, it's not every day that you see a government scheme that hits the right note with young Nigerians. But NELFund might just be one of those rare wins.
Absolutely, Victor. And the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NELFund, was birthed under the Student Loans Act of 2024, now signed by President Bola Tinubu on April 3rd. The goal is to make sure no student misses out on education simply because they can't afford it.
And that's right. It's designed to provide interest-free loans to students in accredited tertiary institutions and even vocational training centers. And here's the good one. Repayment only kicks in 2 years after your NYSC.
Interesting. And NELFund is not just some vague promise. It has a structure, a board, a managing director, and a clear funding source. 1% of all taxes, levies, and duties collected by the FRRS, that's the Federal Inland Revenue Service, go into a general reserve fund. That is how serious this is, Victor.
Indeed, and serious enough that the president officially launched it on April the 28th, 2025, with a starting fund of 32 billion naira. Now that's a bold step forward toward democratizing access to higher education.
And very much in line with the renewed hope agenda. The message is simple. Every willing and qualified Nigerian youth deserves a shot at higher education regardless of financial background.
And it could be a game changer. You might think of how many students, will now have a pathway to fulfill their academic dreams. The ripple effects on society and economy, huge.
Very huge. I wish it was there when we were going to school then, and it will continue to give our young children hope. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, your daily companion on national development and public discourse. Today we are delving deep into NELFund, what it promises, how it works, and why it matters.
And of course, we'll be getting perspectives from experts, education stakeholders, and policymakers to unpack what this fund really means for the future of Nigeria's education system. I am Victor Azu.
And I am Juma Yusuf. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the 4th edition of the program this week. We are live on the network service of the NTA. And as always, stay tuned for more.
Chukwudi Okoli-Ubaja will be joining us shortly for the newspaper review. But first, let's bring in Dennis Adegule, who has got the news highlights this morning. Good morning to you, Dennis.
Good morning, Victor, and Jummai. Good morning, Nigeria. The federal government has signed a financing agreement for the value chain program in northern Nigeria to revolutionize the nation's agriculture sector. With the signing of the agreement, the implementation of the $158 million project begins immediately to support agricultural developments and value addition for farmers in 9 states of the northern parts of the country.
It will serve as a steady pipeline of raw materials and ensuring our processors no longer grow poor quality inputs. This synergy will shift us from exporting raw produce to exporting value-added goods, creating jobs, wealth, and industrial stability.
Meanwhile, the federal government has introduced a national agribusiness policy mechanism aimed at transforming the country's food system and fostering a favorable environment for investments in the agricultural sector. The policy was developed in collaboration with subnational governments and the private sector under the oversight of the Presidential Food System Coordinating Unit within the presidency.
The NAPM is one of the direct responses to that renewed hope mantra. It aligns squarely with Mr. President's priorities of inclusive economic transformation.
We have developed state-specific policies like our contract farming policy, soybean policy, gender in agriculture policy, and ease of doing business in agriculture strategies.
The tax reform bills are at the concluding stage of legislation as the Senate passed 2 of the 4 bills on Wednesday and scheduled the passage of the other 2 for later today, Thursday, 8th of May. The 4 tax reform bills have already been passed by the House of Representatives but had to await concurrence at the Senate.
A bill for an act to provide for the assessment, collection of, and accounting for revenue accruing to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the states and local governments prescribe the powers and functions of tax authorities and for related matters, third reading taken.
Had a very robust public hearing and got to where we are now. And thank God all these areas have been, resolved. That's why this is a bit of democracy.
A ray of hope for cancer patients is on the horizon as the House of Representatives has passed a resolution seeking a financial lifeline for many Nigerians struggling with cancer in the form of subsidies for treatment. The House is urging the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare to make cancer screening free nationwide as a crucial step towards detecting the disease early when it is most treatable.
The rising burden of cancer is causing a shortage of funding for cancer control, with public financing being considered the most appropriate to ameliorate the suffering of patients with cancer.
Mandate the Committee on Healthcare Services, in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare and other relevant agencies, to establish a mechanism for the federal government to provide subsidies for cancer treatment.
Minister of Information and National Orientation Mohammed Idris, at the 7th edition of the ongoing ministerial press briefings, reaffirmed that the federal government has developed a holistic approach to deal with the dynamics of insecurity and to guarantee the safety of lives and property in Nigeria. To fast-track the needed results and sustain successes, he advocated synergy between the civil population and relevant security agencies.
Our troops have neutralized 13,543 terrorists and criminals, arrested 17,469 and rescued 9,821 hostages, while 124,408 Boko Haram/ISWAP terrorist combatant fighters and their families surrendered.
The world continues to wait with bated breath as cardinals search for the next pope. So far, black smoke blew out of the Sistine Chapel chimney, indicating that no pope has been elected on the first ballot of the conclave to choose a new leader of the Catholic Church. With no one securing the necessary 2/3 majority, or 89 votes, the cardinals retired for the night to the Vatican residences where they are being lodged. They will return to the Sistine Chapel on Thursday morning for further considerations. Well, that's the news at this time. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Victor and Jume after this break.
I am Oluremi Tinubu, the global and national Stop TB champion. Many people have asked why I've chosen to champion the fight against a disease like tuberculosis. My reason stems from a deep personal experience. I once had a friend who unfortunately fell ill and concealed the nature of his sickness until it was too late. Eventually, after he passed, we discovered he had tuberculosis. Sadly, due to the stigma and discrimination surrounding the disease, he would not speak up or seek for help. His death was a painful reminder that we could have intervened and saved a life if only we had known earlier. Tuberculosis is an airborne disease that primarily affects the lungs, but can also impact other parts of the body. Being airborne means anyone, regardless of their social economic status, can contract it. In Nigeria, 1 person dies of TB-related illness every 7 minutes, amounting to 206 deaths every day. Globally, 1 person succumbs to TB every 25 seconds, which is a staggering 3,456 lives lost daily. These deaths are entirely preventable because TB is curable if detected and treated early. If you or someone you know has been coughing for 2 weeks or more, coughing up blood, experiencing night sweats, or losing weight drastically, it might be TB. Please visit the nearest government hospital or primary healthcare center for proper diagnosis and treatment. TB treatment is free in all government and some private health facilities. Let us also remember not to stigmatize or discriminate against TB patients or those who have been treated for TB. Individuals who have been cured of TB cannot infect others. I call on all stakeholders, especially the private sector, to join us in the fight to end TB in Nigeria. Together, we can make a difference. Remember, TB anywhere is TB everywhere. End TB by 2030. Yes, we can.
Have you heard the news? The federal government of Nigeria, through its direct benefit transfer program, has started the disbursement of 75,000 naira per household in 3 installments of 25,000, 25,000, 25,000 naira. Each recipient must have a validated national identification number, NIN, to receive the payment on behalf of their household members. To benefit, your household must be in the National Social Register of Poor and Vulnerable Households in Nigeria. The federal government's direct benefit transfer program is helping to reduce the effect of suffering while promoting financial and economic inclusion for the poor and vulnerable population in Nigeria.
Ìjọba fún wa ní 75,000. NIN ni àti káàdì ìlàsílẹ̀ ọgbà. Nígbà tí mo sì gbà, mo fi ṣe nǹkan tó dáa, mo ra oògùn nínú rẹ̀. Mo ra oúnjẹ tí màá jẹ nínú rẹ̀. Mo sì wọkọ̀ mi náà ń bẹ. A sì fi yòókù ṣe ọ̀rọ̀ ajé pé ká tó máa rí dé bá. A dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ìjọba wa òkè.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation, Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, in collaboration with the National Social Investment Programs Agency, National Social Safety Nets Coordinating Office, and the National Cash Transfer Office.
Hear that? It's the roar of the crowd, the pulse of champions, the sound of history being made. Ogun State is ready to host the biggest sporting event of the year, the 22nd National Sports Festival, Gateway Games Ogun 2024. From May 16th to 30th, 2025, the nation's finest athletes will gather at the MKO Abiola Stadium, Abeokuta, and other sports centers in Ogun State. 33 sports, 36 states, and the FCT. One goal: to rise, to compete, to win. The world is watching. This is our moment, our time to shine. The stage is set. Gateway Games Ogun 2024, a celebration of sports, unity, and culture. Host, His Excellency Governor Dapo Abiodun. Ìgbéga ìpínlẹ̀ Ògùn, àjọṣe gbogbo wa ni.
Give more strength to your hair with Mega Growth Leave-In Strengthener. It's infused with wonder oils and conditioning proteins, so you can say goodbye to hair breakage. Wow! Mega Growth Leave-In Strengthener.
Our major currency unit is the Naira, while the minor unit is the Kobo. They are both in notes and coins. The Naira is more than just a medium of exchange. It bears the images of our heroes. So, stop abusing the Naira. It is a criminal offense to spray the Naira at events. Stop stepping on the Naira. It's not your enemy. Do not squeeze, ruffle, or write on the Naira. Handling the Naira with dirty or oily hands can deface the Naira. Love the Naira as you love yourself. Be a real Nigerian. Do not abuse the Naira.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
The Nigerian national flag represents our country's history, culture, and identity. It was designed in 1959. The colors are Emerald Green 2.0, which represents agriculture, and Immaculate White represents unity and peace. Know how to handle our flag. Illuminate the environment or don't fly the flag overnight. Do not fly a dirty or tattered flag. Take such flag to the nearest National Orientation Agency office for proper disposal and replacement. The national flag can only be flown at half-mast on the directive of the federal government. The national flag must be flown at the same or higher height when displayed alongside other flags. Don't burn or allow the national flag to fall on the ground. Do not print, decorate, modify, or insert the coat of arms on the flag. Our national heroes are not buried with the flag. They are honored by presenting it to their next of kin during interment. Respect our national flag. Be a real Nigerian.
This message was brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
All right, up next, it's time to flip through the headlines making waves across the nation.
Now, newspaper reviewer Chukwudi Okolu Baja is seated here in the studio looking like just the boy.
Yes, yeah, a bit sober, though.
But a bit sleepy, I can see.
For reasons best kept to myself, you know. The cameraman is putting out.
You don't want to tell the story.
We don't want to tell any story. We came here to
how your night was.
Not football.
But how was your night, though?
Lovely. I slept well.
After, say you didn't sleep well because Arsenal lost.
No, Arsenal. For now, I'm rethinking my, coalition. That word has become popular in this country.
Yes, coalition.
Coalition with any football team,
Me, I'm still a diehard Arsenal fan.
Let's review the daily.
Strategic planning.
And I'll begin with the leadership, which leads with Labour Party factions return to the trenches. That story is on page 4, and it has two riders. Abure's group suspends Oti, Kingibe, Nwokocha, others. Nenadi summons Abure over alleged corruption and anti-party activities. All right. indeed to the trenches. Okay, and the tiny strip just above that story, take terrorists off front pages, FG Beck's media. Something to think about. A new tax regime imminent as Senate passes 2 reform bills. You can get details of that on page 7. Above the nameplate, 5 billion naira budget padding uncovered at NACON. That story is on page 4. And coalition talks a hallucination, says presidency. That one is on page 7. And just to the right, in the style of the leadership, you have 4 headlines there. Court admits evidence against Nnamdi Kanu is on page 14. Bauchi converts supervisors to teachers is on page 20. 1,700 hectares of Ogoni shoreline cleaned up. That's according to Minister, and it's on page 18. And black smoke, no pope elected on day 1. It's on page 7. Okay, let's go to the Daily Times. Encomiums as Senate passes 2 out of 4 tax reform bills. That's on page 2. To consider remaining 2 bills today. Okay? And above that is a strip, a red strip just between that and the nameplate. Medical, dental doctors want governors to pay same salaries as FG. That's on page 4. And above the nameplate, Boko Haram. Boko Haram fuel supplier snapped in Borno. That's according to the military, and it's on page 2.
Okay, Victor, let's quickly go to the People's Daily newspaper. And just below the masthead, police bust illegal factory producing adulterated soybeans oil in Kaduna. You find the details on page 4.
All right.
FG signs financing pact for $158 million value chain program in northern Nigeria. You find the details on page 5. Kaduna will soon be a one-party state, Obasani claims. And at the bottom plate of the People's Daily, FG appoints committee to address delay in cash transfers to 15 million households. Find the details on page 6. 3 suspects arrested for illegal trafficking of wildlife species. Details on page 3. Labour Party sets up committee to discipline Abure. You find the details on page 16. And COAS vows to strengthen security in Yobe State as the Chief of Army Staff. You find the details on page 7. And the headlines in the People's Daily papers. Troops kill 13,000 terrorists, rescued 10,000 hostages in 3 years. That's coming from the Defense Minister. And Information Minister wants media to deny terrorist bandits publicity. That's about what we have here. Mr. Chooks?
Hello, my dear Jumai. Obasani, that's the governor of Kaduna State. One-party state.
Not
very
possible.
Soon for his... I think what he's saying there, I've not read it, is that the APC would be so
dominant
in Kaduna State that you might not notice the presence of their opponents. A politician is forever optimistic. Even when the odds are against him, a politician would always... but I think APC really has a firm grip in Kaduna for now. Well, you never know. You never know with politics. So we don't go into it deeply because we don't understand those people, do we? 4 billion naira budget padding uncovered at National Hajj Commission of Nigeria. When I see these stories that are investigated reports, I say take it with a pinch of salt, because the National Hajj Commission might come up tomorrow and tell you, no, that's not what happened. But whatever is happening there, first of all, we must remind us that this is a group that represents a religious body. And that we should make sure we do not do anything that brings an iota of doubt into our activities. When you have done your best, you now leave the rest to God. Whether you like it or not, people are going to talk. What we want is transparency, whether it's by the Hajj Commission, whether it is by the Nigerian Air Force Authority, whoever it is. Transparency is needed in Nigeria now. I saw something on Facebook yesterday. They said Nigerians don't like bad leaders, do not really dislike bad leaders. They only complain when the bad leader is not from their community. That one nearly knocked me, you know.
But it's the truth.
It is a question of if our Pekin, don't worry, he's going to bring us our share of the national cake. And the green, white, green continues to suffer. You know, we cannot deceive God. So let us try to do the best so we can get the best. Now, they are saying that the government is asking that terrorism reports are not made, you know, a front page affair. Yes and no. No, because lives matter. No, because lives are involved. People are in anguish. People are tortured. People are dying and all that. A journalist will tell you, when it's about lives, I have to report it. We do not pray for calamity, but when it happens, it makes our days as news people because we lead with it. But the other thing the government is saying is, do not begin to make them have the feeling that they have an upper hand. Because part of what the terrorist wants is for you to say that this is what he has done. It helps him feel that their impact is being felt. So it's the management of communication they are talking about.
So how can you control the social media platform now, the TikTok, where they post their atrocities, the money they receive from? How can that be controlled?
No, it's the conventional media they are talking to, because you can't talk to the social media people, particularly Nigerian social media. That one has gone haywire. The kind of things we see on social media. I am for freedom of expression. But because I went to Sunday school, because I come from one poor community where we were made to be humble people, and to watch what we say, I don't like 3/4 of what I see on social media. But how can you control it? How can you control it? That is the big question. People are going to shoot off. Some people will just come castigate for the heck of it, probably out of economic, frustration. Anything they see, there's nothing good in it. But I think we need to balance life. Because while you're complaining about what is happening to you, you also need to give yourself hope that tomorrow is really greater than today. It depends on how you think.
Okay, let's quickly talk about the Labour Party factions, and they say they've returned.
Which
to
of the
20s.
factions now? You know, a minister said, reportedly told Senator Kingibe, you think 2027 will be like actually the way they are going, 2027 might not be like 2023. Because I can't see a Labour Party that is fragmented the way they are now, actually mustering enough energy, party unity, to actually challenge anybody. You get it? So I think they need to get their act together. Because as journalists, we want pluralism. We want a situation where the more the merrier, we used to say it, so that the citizens are given the opportunity to choose all the time.
Okay, on that note, Mr. Chuks, thanks so much for coming this morning.
Thank you for having me as usual.
We appreciate you as always.
I think the rains are coming properly now.
Yeah. So
Victor, go get your hoe and cutlass.
Our conversation will begin. Don't go away.
I therefore call on my colleagues, or media professionals and editors, to be discerning in their reportage. We must deny these groups the undue publicity they crave. We must take them off the front pages and accurately report them as the criminals that they are, without glorifying their acts or giving credence to their false narratives. These, of course, are not freedom fighters. They are murderers, kidnappers, and destroyers, and they must be presented as such.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying demand. We make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Ethnicity is unique, we have more than destination.
We are Nigeria, strengthening unity. We know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Hey Nigeria, ready to breathe cleaner air and save money? Let's talk about gas. Drive with CNG, the smart, cost-effective choice. Fill up for less and travel further. Save money, save the planet. Switch to LPG for cooking. It's cleaner, healthier, and better for environment. Say goodbye to smoke and eye problems. Do you know Nigeria is a gas nation ranked 9th globally with over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas reserve? Gas isn't just for cooking and driving. It powers industries too. Cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And the best part, conversion centers are popping up everywhere. It's never been easier to switch to gas. Join the cleaner energy revolution. Choose LPG for cooking and CNG for your vehicles. Clean energy for brighter future. This message is brought to you by the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, supported by the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA.
The Nigeria Coat of Arms is the official seal that represents the authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, hung on the wall behind the seat of the principal officer of the government, supported by the portrait of the serving President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It has 7 features. The black shield stands for Good Earth of Nigeria. The silver wavy band stands for the confluence of rivers Niger and Benue. The 2 white horses stands for dignity. The yellow flora is a common wildflower throughout Nigeria. The red eagle stands for strength. The wreath is in our national colors of green, white, green. The motto, unity and faith, peace and progress, is written on a beautiful yellow ribbon, and it's a maxim for all Nigerians. Be a real Nigerian.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
The federal government of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're discussing the Student Loan Act. And don't forget to send your contributions through the number displayed on your screen. Now we have to take the background report on that topic. We'll be right back.
Nigeria's student loan scheme emerges as a beacon of hope for many aspiring scholars in a nation where access to quality education remains a cornerstone for development. The Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NELFund, established under the Student Loans Act of 2024, aims to bridge the financial gap hindering many from pursuing tertiary and vocational education. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration has been instrumental in revamping this initiative, ensuring that the scheme is more inclusive and accessible. Key reforms include the removal of stringent requirements such as parental income thresholds and guarantor provisions, making the application process more straightforward for students across the nation. Financially, the scheme has seen significant backing. As of early 2025, NELFund reported disbursing over 20 billion naira for institutional fees, benefiting approximately 192,906 students, and an additional 12.8 billion naira in upkeep allowances to 169,114 students. The fund currently holds over 130 billion naira, with expectations of an additional 70 billion naira ensuring its sustainability. However, the journey hasn't been without challenges. Data submission delays from state-owned institutions have hindered the timely processing of applications, leading to postponements in disbursements. Moreover, concerns about the scheme's long-term viability have been raised, especially considering Nigeria's unemployment rates and past experiences with loan recovery. To address these concerns, NELFund has implemented measures such as initiating loan repayments 2 years post-NYSC with provisions for deferment in cases of unemployment. Additionally, the scheme now encompasses skill acquisition programs, recognizing the diverse aspirations of Nigerian youths beyond traditional academic paths. As we reflect on the strides made and the hurdles ahead, it's evident that the success of the student loan scheme hinges on continuous collaboration and feedback. Experts, educationists, and professionals in economics and finance emphasize the importance of transparent governance, robust employment opportunities for graduates, and effective loan recovery mechanisms to ensure the scheme's longevity and impact.
All right, many thanks, Ibrahim and Hamidu, for that background report. And to begin our conversation on updates on the student loan scheme, let me welcome here in the studio Akitunde Sawyer, who is the Managing Director, Nigeria Education Loan Fund, NELFund. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, and good morning to Nigerians.
You're welcome. We'll also like to introduce our guest joining us via Zoom. Professor Umar Pate is the Vice Chancellor, Federal University, Kashere, Gombe. He's also the President, Society for Broadcasters of Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
All right, let's begin from here in the studio. And I'd like to, start with clarity. How exactly does NELFund work, and who is qualified to benefit?
Okay, so maybe I should start with the second half of your question, who's qualified to benefit? NELFund is set up under law. So there was an act of Parliament, an act of the National Assembly that effectively says, first of all, NELFund, in order to qualify to apply for this loan, you have to be a Nigerian. Apart from that, you have to be either in a tertiary institution, so already be a part of a tertiary institution as a student. That tertiary institution must be owned by the government of Nigeria or the subnational governments of Nigeria. So effectively, it's a government institutional scheme for Nigerians in Nigeria. So we don't sponsor people to go abroad, only locally. So that's the first qualification criteria.
Government universities, private universities?
Okay, so the what I said was that it's government-owned, federal or state government-owned universities, no private institutions. Also, let's be careful with the word universities, because I said tertiary institutions.
Okay.
So it's universities, polytechnics, colleges of education. Those three categories qualify as long as they're government-owned, whether it's state government or federal government.
Okay. Can you tell us what prompted, the reforms, to the original Student Loan Act of 2023? Were there issues?
So, there were issues, but they were pre-launch issues that were identified. So it's not that the scheme was running already. It's just that the president, when he looked at the initial scheme, which he signed into law on the 12th of June 2023, having been passed in the National Assembly prior to that, decided that there were a number of things that he felt would discriminate against Nigerians. One was the fact that if a family had a household income in excess of 500,000 naira, they wouldn't qualify. The second was the fact that if a student or a loanee wanted to apply for the loan, they would need some sort of guarantor. And the president wasn't comfortable with that because it introduced a gateway, effectively, where there was an opportunity to prevent people for graft and all that sort of thing. The third thing was that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, wanted the students not just to have the opportunity to access the education, he wanted them to be able to access additional funds, stipends, pocket money, upkeep, call it what you like, but additional funds that go directly to them so that they don't go to class hungry.
Now, many students are excited but skeptical. What's in place to show that this is going to be sustainable?
Okay, so the excitement is very welcome, and I'm not surprised that students are excited because, for far too long in this country, students have not enjoyed what students in other countries enjoy, access to education, especially access to education at the highest level. As far as the skepticism that you describe is concerned, it's not surprising. There have been so many promises made in this country to so many students about how life was going to get better. Electioneering time, people would come in, they'd make promises, they'd make offers, anything to win votes, really. And of course, once, the party in question gets into power, some of those things are forgotten. And especially as it relates to this particular segment of society, which in many ways finds it difficult to find a voice, even though they're the largest number. So that's where the skepticism could come from. What has happened now is that we believe that having rolled this out, having got a significant number of people who have applied successfully, that that skepticism would be pushed back, because if your neighbor has applied for the loan or your roommate has applied for the loan and they've got it, they've actually been able to access classes, they've been able to receive stipends, which is paid every month. That's the greatest, as they say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. The greatest way to dispel doubt is to show that it's possible and to show that people are getting it. This scheme, you can apply for it online, www.nelf.gov.ng. You don't need to know anybody. You just have to have a device, an internet connection, your JAM, your NIN, your matric number or admission number, name, accurate date of birth. And effectively, if your school has updated your data into their system, into our system, I beg your pardon, there's a match and you can get the loan. Many people have gotten this loan without speaking to anybody, without paying anybody anything.
Does everybody that applies qualified get the loan?
No, otherwise, if everybody that applies qualified to get the loan, then there would be no point in having an application system. Yeah. Essentially, we have a system that goes through a number of steps. The initial qualifying criteria, I think, are already described. But clearly, one of the things that we do is to ensure that the credentials that are uploaded, so there's a requirement for the candidates to upload some data, some evidence, should I say, ID cards, admission letters in some cases. That's a critical part of it. The other part of it is to ensure that actually they attend the institution. So let me clarify on that. Remember, these loans are applied for in the privacy of people's homes, of people's bedrooms. We don't meet the candidates. We never meet the candidates. Therefore, we have to go through a process that ensures that they are verified, they are confirmed that by the institution that they're going to, they're confirmed by NIN, which we API, we have a digital handshake with, they're confirmed by JAMB, where we have a digital handshake. Effectively, when they put all that information in, we can uniquely identify an individual. If any of that information is incorrect, if it's false, if it's wrong, then of course they are automatically disqualified.
I'm sure, you know, there are models like this in the US, in the UK, and other climes across the world. So what is the model that this Student Loan Act is fashioned after? And what is the application process like? You said you can do it from your room, from everywhere, but how tedious is it not, you know, knowing that our network problem at times can just make things not easy anymore?
So I think you've asked two very useful questions there. So first of all, what's it modeled after? Well, we have I think this is probably most similar to the system or the model they have in the UK. But having said that, this is different in a number of ways. First of all, it's interest-free. So at no stage do the current applicants have to consider paying interest. I say that because the law allows us to apply interest, but we have decided that we are not going to do that because Nigerian students need to be encouraged and need to have the benefit of actually taking a loan to pay for something that can never be taken away from them. And to encourage them is to say, well, we're not a commercial entity, we're not trying to make a profit. So in essence, you know, that differentiates this from any other model that you might find anywhere else. The other thing that I should say to you is that students, loanees, those who have taken the loan, are not obliged to return any funds to the NEL Fund until they have a job. And they are not required to even start doing that until 2 years after NYSC. So effectively, there's a long moratorium that allows them to look for work, to do anything that's possible, to even perhaps, you know, skills or acquisition to enhance themselves. And it is only when they get a job, anytime 2 years after NYSC, that they're required to pay back. And even then, it's the employer that goes to check the NIN to see whether the person they're about to employ has a loan or not. And the employer deducts 10% from their salary, and by law, the employer is the one that's obliged to pay the NEL Fund back, unless the loanee is self-employed, in which case they're paying themselves, you know, to work and they're making a profit. But it's still 2 years after NYSC. Having said that, if people want to pay back immediately because they've got the job of their dreams, if they want to pay back immediately because they've suddenly come into some money, they can. But we're just saying they don't have to. That differentiates this from any other scheme anywhere else in the world. Just to add, they get a job, 10% is deducted and sent to the fund. If they lose that job, they stop paying. No earnings, no payment. It's that simple. So those are two differentiators, if you like, from schemes elsewhere in the world, and they're important differentiators. The president wants everybody to have access to this, so the idea is to make it as simple and easy as possible. You borrow 100,000, you pay back 100,000, even if it's 10 years down the line. I mean, where do you find that kind of thing happening?
All right, let's give you a brief, MD. We'll get back to you because there are still a lot of things to clarify. But let's bring Professor Partey into this conversation. And I'd like to ask, Prof, from where you stand as a Vice Chancellor, what's your assessment of, you know, the students' loan scheme, maybe from your students? And as a broadcaster, as a journalist, how do you see it, the workability of it?
Thank you very much and good morning. I think the NEL Fund is one of the most significant policies and programs that we have had in our universities in recent times. I benefited from the state scholarship as a student in the 80s to get my first degree, and later through the instrumentality of the university fellowship, I was able also to get my postgraduate degrees, master's and PhD. But if not for TETFund, that has been doing quite a lot in terms of providing fellowship for our lecturers in the universities to get higher degrees, not much could be said to have been done or from states or even from the federal side. But with the coming of NELFund, students can now benefit significantly. I am a vice chancellor. I've been receiving mails from TETFund, and not only mails, I've been receiving monies into my bursary unit for students, and we have been disbursing these resources to our students. They are very, very happy, and these resources have been quite helpful. I can tell you that the flow of the funds so far has also been quite stable. Almost all the students that applied in my university, in thousands, have got the NELFund money. And as I'm talking to you right now, the last tranche we received from NELFund is being disbursed to our students. And like the Oga said, it is quite simple. I don't know how the students apply, but whenever they apply, I get a list from NELFund. And sometimes students also complain to me, oh, I've applied, I've not received, I've done this, I've not done that. At the beginning, students were a bit skeptical. And I remember on some occasions organizing our students to appeal to them to apply to the NELFund. I remember there was also a time we were in Abuja for a meeting, and immediately I returned to school. I called the Students' Union body to ensure that almost all the students have applied. Like the students in my department, I still teach my courses. My students are just resuming. The students in mass communication, particularly at the 400 level, almost all of them have received the NELFund money. Their names appeared in the last tranche. I wish I could share some of the text messages some of them sent to me, expressing appreciation, gratitude, as if it was the school that did it. But it wasn't the school. The school only is just like a facilitator. The real funders are in Abuja. They send us the money, and once we receive the money, we transmit the messages to the students with the entire list of all the monies that we have received with them to WhatsApp and their other channels. Then they now come to our bursary, submit their students' account details and some other details, and immediately the money is released. And we have been doing that fantastically. So I commend the federal government for this particular initiative, which I believe is quite useful to our students, considering the economic situation in the country, the difficulties of their parents, and even the conditions on campuses. My appeal is only for state governments to also emulate. Many of the states used to have functional scholarship boards, but many of these scholarship boards have simply become moribund. They are just not functioning. So you see, with the effort of NELFund now, and if we can also get additional support from state governments, particularly for students who may want to go for postgraduate studies, this situation that we are experiencing in terms of difficulties for students, in terms of the kind of frustration and aggression sometimes you see because of the economic situation, will definitely reduce, and the campuses will be much better. And on our own part as universities, we are also benefiting, getting the tuition fee, or not tuition fee, some of the service charges the students are supposed to pay are easily deducted from the sums, and they paid to the university direct into the bursary, and then the balance remitted to them without any stress. And I can't think of any complaint on my campus of students not receiving their monies when and as they should. Once we get any alert from NELFund, we transmit the information and we remit the monies to the students. So far on my own campus, I don't know what's happening on other campuses. Things are okay. And we commend NELFON and we urge them, please, to continue with the good ways of what they have been doing so far. It's been quite helpful to our students. And I can tell you thousands, not hundreds, thousands of my students. I cannot specifically call, but I think it should be in the region of 5,000 to 6,000 or thereabout of my students have got this loan. And what else are we asking for? Better than this.
Indeed, Professor Party, in those days, going to school was not easy, especially from students whose parents are not well-to-do, going on 001, 100, and the way we term it in the university. How easy has this student loan made it for students to attend classes and get good results?
As a university student, I was the president of the biggest students' union on campus then in my university, and we were the people dealing with state scholarship boards. And I can recall how active the state scholarship boards in Borno, Gongola, then Bauchi used to be in the northeast sub-region. I don't know whether they're still active or not today, but students always look forward to receiving their scholarship or bursaries. Today, these scholarships, like I've said, are just not functioning. So the only window today existing is this NELFON. And with the devastating poverty we are witnessing in our communities, naturally it will impact on the students too. If you hear the stories of how our students are surviving on some of our campuses, it is so pitiful. But like I've said, this window coming from the federal government through NELFON is quite supportive. Students at least can pay some of the charges on campuses. They can also get something to depend on. So you cannot just tell how the level of importance in the life of our students, except perhaps if we decide to do a sort of a mini research to see the impact of these interventions, even if it's just in the interim on our campuses. Maybe I should be able to do that on my campus. Just commission the Students' Union Department or one of our departments to do a study on the impact of this in the last 1 year or so that this program is being implemented. Definitely, without sounding conclusive, I can predict that the response is going to be very, very positive. I only wish state governments can also follow suit, at least take a portion of their earnings and support the poor students that we have on campuses.
Thank you very much, Professor Party. Just before we continue the conversation, we have some quick messages that I would like to quickly read out so that we can address them. Now, Ayola Olawale, a PhD student from the University of Ibadan, says, is the student loan restricted to undergraduate students? I guess postgraduate students in government-owned universities are excluded from the scheme. Abbas Abubakar Saad from Jalingo says, the student loan scheme, NELFON, is a very good policy. How will graduates who are still unemployed or earning a low income be able to repay the loan? Also, is there any option in place to ease the burden and prevent long-term financial stress, especially for those who are unemployed? And finally, from Emmanuel from Maiduguri, can you help us ask Mr. Akintunde when they would attend to people who changed their bank details since last year, November, and have not received upkeep till now? I guess the three questions are pretty much for you.
Yes, they are. First of all, let me accept and commend the comments from Professor Pate there. I think it's very encouraging for us to have heard those comments that 5,000 to 6,000 students and that the university is making sure that they receive value straight away. So to the questions that have been put to me, the first question revolved, I think, around availability of the loan for postgraduate students. It's a fair question. However, our mandate for now is to ensure that those who haven't had the first bite of the cherry, those who haven't had the first rung, been able to cross the first rung of the ladder, should get the opportunity first. So we're very focused because we have limited resources on undergraduates so that they get a chance. We don't want to pay people or give people loans to go and do PhDs and master's programs and then leave behind people who are struggling just to get into a tertiary institution. We think that's the fair way to take it, and that's what we intend to do. The second question,
is talking about those who are still unemployed. You've addressed it in part.
Yes.
You know, how they can pay and not get stressed out.
Again, it's a very fair question. For somebody who's sitting at home, who's graduated, or who has an elder brother or an elder sister who graduated some years ago and haven't been able to get a job, it makes them a bit reticent about trying to take a loan to go and study if the ones that have gone before them hadn't had the opportunity to get a job. What I will say is that the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, has a number of different policy thrusts. And you know, you would have heard a couple of days ago something about, you know, pushing for Nigerian-made goods to be the ones that are bought in preference or instead of, you know, imports. These are policies that are going to encourage job creation. And I can tell you that even though we're not there yet, a lot of the policies that you're seeing coming together under the administration will seek to address and bring all of these things together. So I will say it's discouraging not to have work. However, my belief is that things will change, and the government will not be giving student loans, which we need to recover somehow, unless they're jobs that are going to be.
Okay, let's get the student.
The last one, he hasn't, sorry.
Okay, he has the last question.
Addressed the last one, which talked about change of bank details.
Okay.
Since last year.
Yeah. So, you know, this is a brand new scheme, number one. Number two, we are dealing and managing government or taxpayers' funds. It's a totally faceless scheme. In other words, there's no human interaction. You come to me, you give me your bank details online. You come to me later, you say your bank details have changed. Because we never meet you, we are very careful about the change of bank details. Is somebody extorting you? Is somebody forcing you to use a different bank detail? We will eventually solve this, but for now, we don't want lots of money leaving through the window because we never meet the people. So again, I empathize because a lot of people are expectant of this. They want this money. But sadly, a few people put in the wrong details in the first place. And for us, we'll carry out proper due diligence. Please be patient. We have tech systems and due diligence guidelines in place that will help us speed this process up over time. For now, I appreciate the suffering and the anticipation and the frustration. But bear with us. We're dealing with government funds. We will have to account for these funds, and we don't know what you look like.
So students must make sure they have an account number that will run throughout the period of the loan itself.
Not necessarily. So remember, see, because it's a new scheme, for now, we're not going to get into the business of changing account numbers for everybody. Over time, when we've been able to get a proper, stronger handle on, you know, who's doing the change, why they're doing the change, they can change. We work through BVN anyway, so the BVN ties all account numbers together. Exactly. It's just that we don't want to be paying money into accounts without being sure.
So let's get the reaction of a student, and our third guest is joining us. She's Rashidat Mohammed Nasser, student of Department of Political Science, Ahmadu Bello University, ABU Zaria, Kaduna State. She is the current Vice President, Faculty of Social Sciences, and also a student advocate interested in female participation in the society. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, Rashidat.
Good morning, all. Thank you so much, ma'am.
What is your impression of the student loan and the acceptability in your institutions and students as well?
It's actually a very excellent policy of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration. We can clearly see the impact on a very high number of students, whereby we do have this high number of students dropping out from the institution, around 2,000 or so every year. But so far so good. We have a very few number of students that dropped out for other reasons, not financial reasons, just their own personal reasons and what have you in the institution. The students are benefiting well here. Yes.
Okay, how easy has it been for students, students like you to access the NELFund website and apply? And how many students do you know that have been paid already?
They have paid a total sum of 10,000, approximately 10,000 students who have applied the loan. All of them got the loan, except for those few that have been withdrawn from the institution that applied for the loan. They were not able to get the loan. And for you to apply this, for one to apply this loan, you don't need any connection. As we said earlier, we don't need any connection. You just need your network connection to apply for this student loan. Your NIN, your JAMREG number, your university registration number too, and your bank details, BVN. We only face few challenges of those students that use this fintech platforms like OPay, microfinance, and all that were not able to get their stipend. Now.
Sorry. Are you a beneficiary? Have you applied?
Yes, I applied for the loan.
Have you received?
I got my tuition fees paid and my stipend monthly.
Interesting. Okay, we'll get back to you. We have some text messages that came in. Ifeanyi from Ibadan said, I tried to apply for the loan for my son, who is currently in 200 level at the Ladoke Akintola University of Gbomosho. It didn't get through the site, referred us to contact his university. I'll be unable to pay for his 150,000 tuition fee, which might prevent him from moving forward with his studies. Please kindly and urgently help us with this. And Olaniyo Ademola Sunday says, my son applied for a student loan, but he didn't get the loan. He's a student of Lagos State University studying mechanical engineering. Please, why didn't he get the loan? And Sam Ayegba says, good morning. What happens when a student has already paid school fee before getting the NELFund scholarship award? Should the student request for the earlier payment? And Mr. Benjamin from Anambra says, is there any specific amount to be collected or applied for the student loan throughout the years in the school? And Yusuf Yahya said, I have a complaint of not receiving homekeeping allowances.
And the final one from Ali Elias here says, it's a very key policy as long as this government is concerned. Transparent, easy to apply, payment sometimes a bit delayed, but consistent. Kudos to NELFund, kudos to President Bola Tinubu. So, you want to respond to some of the issues raised?
Before we go to Mr. Professor Pati.
Yeah. Did you want me to respond?
Yeah.
Okay, so you may need to just talk me through them. I think the first one was to do with somebody who applied at Ogbomosho.
Yes, at Ogbomosho.
So, when people go to the site, there are a number of pieces of information that they need to provide. They need to provide their name. Okay. They need to provide their date of birth. They need to confirm that they're Nigerian, and they do that by entering their NIN. They need to confirm that they've accessed the tertiary institution using JAMB. So they need their JAMB reg number. They need to be able to provide us with the institution that they're attending on a drop-down list. And of course, they also need to be able to provide us with either an admission number or a matriculation number. Let me just tell you and explain something to you about those things. When they provide us with the NIN, we have a digital handshake with NIMSI that checks that that NIN is a correct and accurate NIN, and that it ties into the name that they have provided us with and the date of birth. When they provide us with the JAMB reg number, it checks with JAMB that that JAMB number is accurate, it's real, and it's not made up. If there's any inaccuracy in that number, it will fail. So these numbers are generally alphanumeric. They're numbers and digits. If they put an O instead of a 0, it will fail. Okay? It will fail because it's sensitive to that sort of thing. So what happens when all that information is put in? I remember I said it has a digital handshake with NIMSI, it has a digital handshake with JAM. We also have an internal digital handshake within our system, because all the institutions are obliged by us to provide us with all the same information that we're asking the students for. So the institutions, the colleges of education, the polytechnics, the universities, provide us with a complete list of their students with their name, their full name, their date of birth, their JAM reg number, their matriculation number, the department they're in, the course they're studying, and importantly, the cost of the course. So every course comes at a different cost.
Okay. What about if Sam Aiwada said that he has already paid the school fees? Should he, you know, should the student request for the earlier payment?
So very quickly, let me just come in. So we have an internal digital handshake that checks that information. I'm trying to address the Ogbomosho issue.
Yes.
If any of that information is incorrect, or if the school has not provided us with either accurate information or any information at all, it will ask you, the system will say, missing information, return to your institution. So it is important that the institutions provide us with accurate information.
Okay.
With regards to people who have paid their fees already, if you've applied and due to our due diligence process, the fees that we pay on your behalf come after you've had to pay because of an impending deadline, the school is obliged to return and refund your money to you.
Okay.
That is the obligation that the school has. Otherwise, they're receiving money twice for the same student. Some schools have been very good at doing that. Others have been a bit slower. The other issue that we've been having recently, unfortunately, there's a handful of institutions that have received the funds. And unlike Professor Pate's institution, which is very quick at telling people that the funds have come through, a handful of institutions have received the funds. They haven't told the students they've received it. The students have had to go and look for money to pay. And of course, that compromises the students, and some of them actually drop out. It's a disastrous way to behave for the institutions that are doing it, and there will be severe penalties for these institutions on the way. We're doing a lot of investigation into this at the moment. But to the question, the school is obliged to refund to the student the funds that they have paid in excess of what we've paid.
Okay.
All right, let's get back to Professor Pate quickly. Professor Pate, would you say that the scheme as it is perfect, or you think that there are gaps to plug to make it even better?
Thank you very much. I have had some of the questions raised, and of course, being a new scheme, and also at the initial point, there may be some hitches here and there. This should be expected, either on the part of the institutions or on the part of the people who are engaged in the activity, and also looking at the number of students involved. Now, in my own institutions, we have had students that paid their tuition fees before getting the loans. Their names, I think, were approved and the money sent not long ago. And we are in the second semester now. So what we did for those that have already paid their registration fees, simply we remitted the monies to them through their accounts with the refund of all that they paid to the university. And it's been a very seamless issue. In fact, I met with the Students' Union before, when they were registered. They came to me to say, okay, some people applied and their names are yet to appear, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, no, there is no problem with this. We have a whole desk, a whole unit that we have created for this activity. Make sure once you have registered, keep your documents, and the day your name nail form with your money will notify you that your name has appeared on the list to the Students' Union and through their own channels. And then we remit the money that you have paid for registration directly into your account. So far, we have not had any issue in that regard. So, and for those that were lucky that their monies came before the payment of registration fees. They didn't have any issue. They just got their monies. Initially, students were skeptical. Some students were skeptical on applying for this NEL fund. I remember the advocacy I did among my students, telling them, convincing them. Some people were a bit skeptical that, oh, no, we are not sure. So just apply. And when the first tranche, they realized that this is serious. Then a number of them now started applying left, right, and center. And the monies have been coming, but not at once. So after a while, you see a tranche coming in. In fact, some people are even spreading rumors, oh, we have got money, we are keeping the money in our accounts in the university. I called the students, I said, look, why are we going to give you our monies? Once you have the money, every student will come, submit his details to whatever, so that we can be sure it is him. And then we remit the money to the account. And we have been doing just that. As I'm talking to you now, most of my students in mass communication who didn't apply initially applied. They have got the monies now. And they are receiving, in fact, I wish I could show you the messages that some who have sent to me, expressing their gratitude and saying, oh, they are happy, they have got their monies, blah, blah. So I don't think there are serious complications for now, except where we decide to create unnecessary bureaucracies into the system at the level of disbursement. But there should be no reason for that. Once the money comes into your bursary, you have a whole unit, and then the students are notified. Except, like the MD said, we have some few cases of students having problems with their account numbers. And some students come to you to complain that, oh, they have applied for NEL fund, they have not, they say, just relax. So these are normal issues that we handle at our own operational levels. But on a very general level, I don't think there are fundamental issues that we can say are causing wahala. The students themselves are increasingly noticing and knowing that, look, this thing is serious. Once you have applied, you have a very high chance of getting the money. So it's just a matter of time. The entire campuses will get on board, and I hope the resources will continue to flow through TED Fund to the students. That's the only thing. But for now, I think at our own level in Kashere, we do not have any major issue. And I hope, like I've said, I'll be able to do a small study, just maybe a small study among to ask what are, the impact and probably their expectations and if there are problems. And that could give us an insight on whether we are also managing the process very well or not.
All right. Professor Partey, thank you very much. As we gradually wind down this conversation, I think two more messages have come in. Good morning, he says. The NEL fund policy is a welcome policy. However, I wish to ask, are government policies on bursaries and scholarships no more tenable in the country? My sons are skeptical about anything loan. That's from Ndika Obu. And then Olani Ademola says, why is it that Northerners are enjoying more of the student loan? Are other parts of the country not applying as much? Well, that's a question to be answered. And finally, Ms. Bahu from Abuja, is it not possible for NEL Fund to send alarm of payment to students directly to stop institutions from withholding the information? Alarm? Perhaps alerts?
Alert,
okay.
Alert. I think alert. So let me address that one first. Okay. So yes, I mean, the way the system works at the moment is that when a student applies for the loan, they get the initial response they get if their loan application is successful is they get a statement saying pending.
Okay.
After some time, when we've reviewed all the documentation that they've provided, in terms of what they've uploaded, and we've reviewed the application itself, it moves to verified. So we verify the application effectively. After that, we send the list to the institution. They say, yes, these are our students. It goes to approved. And then it goes to disbursement on their dashboard. So they know it's been disbursed. Very soon, we're going to start putting in systems that alert the students. Because of some of these issues, these contentious issues on campuses, we're going to alert the students more actively as to when their fees have been paid, so that they don't have to struggle with that. Now, to the other question around bursary scholarships, look, we run a federation, 36 states, federal government. The federal government has loans, as in NELFund. There are scholarships which are still being given. There are bursaries which are still being given. Each of the 36 state governments have their own policies around how they support education.
I enjoyed bursary anyway.
Yeah, this scheme does not supersede, it doesn't obliterate any of the other schemes that are going on in the country. Of course, we want to give the loans to people who are not enjoying a bursary somewhere, who are not enjoying a scholarship somewhere. So we're going to take a holistic view because we want this thing to spread across the nation. There was a question about, you know, people enjoying this from one part of the country or another. This is a loan. You can't force people to take loans. If everybody in a particular state wants to take a loan and in all the other states they don't want to take it, as long as we present the opportunity to them, that's our obligation, to present the opportunity that you can get this loan. You can't force people to take loans, okay? You can encourage, and I, for one, sit here today encouraging people. These are not loans for consumer goods. These are not loans for things that you're going to throw away in 5 years' time because it's not working anymore. Once you have your education, you can never get rid of it. It's with you all the way. So if you're going to take a loan for anything, it's for education. It doesn't break down, it doesn't spoil, it doesn't get thrown in the bin. It is with you for life. These are the loans to take, and actually it's interest-free. So the whole idea of north, south, east, west,
doesn't quite,
it doesn't gel because you have, it's a voluntary scheme and you have to volunteer to take it. But I am biased. I advise everyone to take this loan. If you need it, take it, because as I said, it's something that stays with you for life and you can never ever regret it. It also takes pressure off your parents. I know your parents never ask you to pay back, but in effect, there are very few people who can pay for their own education. There's some people in institutions who go to class and go to work. They always end up with lower grades.
Okay.
So you know, take this because it can focus and you can become the best that you can be if you don't have to worry about going to look for a job.
Okay, let's pause you here before we let you go. We'd like your final words. But Rashida, if you're there, Rashida, what is your hope and aspiration for this student loan as a student and for those coming into the university? What sustainability is what I'm talking about here.
All right. I hope that the whole NELFund scheme will be sustainable and it will continue for new students joining higher institutions. But before that, I also want to talk, firstly, I want to applaud my own Vice Chancellor in person of Professor Kabir Bala and the high level of representation. He was able to refund the loans of the school fees of students who already paid their fees before the loans got disbursed, most especially for those of the second tranche, because we got it very late. And that issue of the northerners getting more than other parts of the country, the student loan scheme. I remember clearly that the managing director of the student loan, Mr. Kintunde Sawyer, actually visited almost all institutions in Nigeria except ABU, Ahmadu Bello University Zaria. He haven't visited us yet, but we were able to get this loan, both first and second tranche, due to the high level of representation from both our SRC, our student union, with the president in person of Nazir Ibrahim Kalla, and also the institutions, the bodies that were in charge of the loan disbursement. So there is no sentiment when it comes to this whole student loan scheme thing. And I just hope it continues and the president will help us sustain it, please, because we love it. We really do, honestly. The challenge is also of this fintech platforms, like those students that use OPay, PalmPay, MoneyPoint. They already have given their BVN. So what I feel is NELFund should allow those students get their stipend, because it may look normal, but it's not normal for me to see other students getting 20,000 when they've applied for the same loan I've applied, and I that is using OPay, MoneyPoint, and PalmPay is not also getting, because I use all these fintech platform. We've already given a BVN, bank verification number. So we just want, if we just wish.
Rashida, we've run out of time. We have to join Professor Partey for his last word. Professor Partey, going forward, how do you see the student loan being disbursed to students? And somebody complained that a part of the some parts of the countries are not getting. But is that why people should abstain from applying for it?
A loan. It's a matter of choice for you to pick. But let me tell you one thing. On my campus, students are from all over the states in Nigeria. And no state or no student was denied the loan, to the best of my knowledge, based on his state of origin. Anybody that applied, I think, got the loan. And the list is very, very transparently displayed on campus. There's nothing hidden there. You can go and check and look at the names. You'll find the name of students from all over the country. But the next issue is, I think there's a challenge for our state government to reciprocate or to replicate what is happening at the federal level. I remember sometimes ago, a particular governor asked me, why can't we reduce our registration fee or make the students to pay in tranches? I said, sir, the best way to help the student is give them bursaries. There's a particular state that send the bursary, the registration fee of their students directly to the university. They asked me in the university, please, can you provide the list of our students in your university? In fact, particularly Kano State, can you provide the list of our students? We send the list to them, and they paid the monies directly to the university, and their students never paid any kobo. And I'm sure some of these students, they also got the NELFON. So if other states can also have the courage and the conviction to continue to help their students in the universities, plus the NELFON, things will be much better for our educational system. Our students will be in more conducive environments. Our campuses will be more peaceful, and everything will be better for everybody. So please, the state governments should replicate what is happening at the federal level. There should be no excuse for any state government in this country not to support the students like it used to be the case in the past.
All right, Professor Partey, we thank you very much. And finally, let me get back to Akitunde Sawyer here in the studio. If I don't ask you this, I wouldn't be doing my job. Recently, there's been allegation of fraud in the NELFON, in the student loan scheme. What do you say to this? Because it has the potential of undermining public trust in the scheme, and that will affect, what the federal government intended for students.
Thank you very much. I think it is most unfortunate that these allegations have emerged, especially in a country like this at this time. This country is facing huge amounts of difficulty because of many, many schemes that have been undermined through fraud in the past. This scheme is targeted at people who have generally been the victims of underinvestment in this country. So for fraud to be associated with this type of scheme is very unfortunate. And I think it's important that we don't bury our heads under the sand. I think whenever we see anything that suggests that there's fraud, it should be thoroughly investigated. We are not leaving any stone unturned, whether the fraud is supposedly outside of the organization or inside the organization. We're constantly monitoring what's going on. We work with the security agencies to ensure that any information that we have, we provide to them. The other thing I'll tell you is that we're supervised by the Ministry of Education. The Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, is very, very keen and very laser focused actually on these issues. And I think anyone who's found wanting will suffer some administrative penalties from the Ministry of Education, who supervise most of the institutions. We don't have a supervisory role, but we're working very closely with the Honorable Minister and the Ministry to ensure that things are closed off. Finally, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, has deployed this incredible scheme to help a huge number of people. It's a vision he's had. It's very courageous. Most administrations want a quick win. They want to do something that everybody's going to start shouting and saying, yeah. This is a long, drawn-out process. But it's a long, drawn-out process that's going to help individuals. It's going to help the education system. It's going to help the country. So I think that the political will to ensure that this is not a scheme that ends in disaster or becomes moribund he's laser focused on this as well. I'm talking about the president. So actually, all eyes are on this scheme. Not talk about the students. Students themselves, they're really focused on this. So anyone who wants to do fraud here should be careful.
Indeed, it is a renewed hope for Nigerian students, actually. Thank you so much, Akintude Soya, Managing Director, Nigeria Education Loan Fund, NEL Fund. Thank you so much for your contributions and your clarification on so many issues. I'm sure students watching have learned how to apply and get the loan. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me here this morning.
Professor Umar Pate, Vice Chancellor, Federal University, Kashere, Gombe State. He's also the President, Society for Broadcasters of Nigeria, and also my former lecturer. Thank you so much for coming. And Rashidat Mohammed Nasir, student of Department of Political Science, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Kaduna State. She's the current Vice President, Faculty of Social Sciences, and also a student advocate interested in female participation in the society. Thank you so much for your contribution to the conversation. We appreciate it. We'll take a break. When we return, our second conversation will begin.
Well, creativity is so broad. I would say whatever it is that you're creative about, it takes a lot of practice before you become very good. So if it's something you intend to pursue, it's something you have to keep doing. You have to keep practicing. It's not going to be an overnight success, which a lot of people look for. But if it's something you're determined about, but the drawback rather, is that you need what is called staying power. While you're developing your creativity, you need to earn a living. So I know that's where the conflict usually comes in, especially with the hardship in the country and all that. But I think a lot of encouragement from the private sector to create incubator hubs. We've had some of those in tech. We need those across various sectors as well. Incubator hubs where these ideas can come in, be developed, be encouraged, be funded, and then we can expand it from there.
Content creation, while it may sometimes get a bad rap, I think it's actually very important because we have to see ourselves. We have to see ourselves living our lives. We have to show and share our stories. I think that's very important. Now, the job after that is to be able to digitize those stories into something that can provide data and insights, that can ensure that we can be able to support whole-scale industry in these spaces, to ensure that the amount of money that each content creator is getting exceeds what is currently happening for many content creators. The same content creator who lives in Nigeria will be earning less than a content creator who's living in the US or the UK or Japan. And we've got to also bridge that gap because most of that is being driven by the ability of the consumers to pay for those goods, and also the pricing that many of these platforms have. So I think this is not the job for the content creators and the young people. This is a job for people like myself in the ecosystem who can help support the right pricing, to advocate for the right policies, to support economic development for consumers who want to consume that information and that content. And even beyond content creation, we're seeing that many people are stepping in behind the camera. They are producers, editorial, they are graphic designers, they are in technology, but maybe not in front of the camera. And what we want to say is also, we need those people too. We need those stakeholders involved. And the job of many policymakers, DFIs, is to ensure that the strategic investments get there, the collaboration gets there, and we're deliberate in how we're saying we want to support innovation in our continent.
There's an age group where your brain function is at its maximum, and that's the age group we call the youth, isn't it? So we need the youth, the younger generation who have the energy, the imagination to be equipped with the proper education, the proper tools, the proper encouragement, and then take what innovation they bring out and turn it into mainstream developmental ideas. So you find a lot of things that are invented by people in school or straight out of school. We need our patent laws to work so that they can earn a living from their imagination. Once the imagination is just for a one-year festival or an event, then it's not worth it. Somebody creates something, we need to get our patent laws to work. we need to enforce them, and then the private sector can use those patents to develop things and encourage more people to be more creative. Back in the days, yes, you had to be an engineer, a lawyer, a doctor. Today we have programmers, we have AI specialists, we have people that are doing ethics on genetics. Those things didn't exist 50 years ago. So there are new areas that need to be explored. The question really, apart from the parenting, does our educational curriculum cater for what the needs of the world will be in the next generation? Because our curriculum is dealing with the issues of the past. We need the government and the private sector to redo the entire educational curriculum to be forward-focused, not retroactive.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we have a guest in the studio today that will be celebrating Friday, 9th of May. We celebrate a remarkable milestone, the 90th birthday of Professor Mary Laa, a stalwart of peace, love, and unity in Nigeria. As the wife of the late Chief Solomon Laa, the first civilian governor of Plateau State, Professor Mary Laa has continued to uphold his legacy through her tireless efforts in promoting peaceful coexistence and community development.
Of course, join us as we reflect on her life, legacy, and contributions to Nigeria. We will be speaking with the non-Nigerian herself to gain insight into her remarkable journey and the impact she's had on countless lives. So let me welcome to Good Morning Nigeria Ambassador Professor Mary Nanwo Laa, OON, a first female professor in northern Nigeria. A pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
And also my birthday mate. Yeah, I'm so happy to be here with you. Tomorrow is my birthday too, and I appreciate the fact that you're here. It's a pleasure to have you. It's an honor to have you.
It's so nice. What does it mean to reach this milestone? Not everybody gets there, not many actually.
Thank you so much, first of all, for the opportunity you've given me to talk to Nigerians in this forum. I'm so delighted that at this age there are people who admire the aged. And I know in our days, when I was a young little girl, when we sit together, you know, when children meet with themselves, they would gist too. And some of them will say, I don't want to be old, you know. And so one will say, why? They will say, because old people look ugly, or old people are so burdened to other people, they become a burden, and they don't want to look old. And I remember I used to say, me, I want to be old. And they say, you want to be a problem to other people? I say, I'll be old, but I don't want to be a problem to other people. So I feel good. Right now, to my surprise, those that say they don't want to live old, they have gone. But the power of mouth, when I said I want to, God honored that and granted me those years. I'm very grateful to.
So talking about memories, you know, what are the most memorable moments, you know, experience that stand out for you in your years here on earth?
90 years, and you want me to mention just one?
Memorable ones.
Wow.
Not just one, memorable ones.
Well, I'll think of my school days, very memorable. And I'll think of my family, because after school is family. And then I'll think of my profession. And I know right from the beginning, what has brought me to this level is that power that is above me, the power of God. And I believe that His grace upon me has really brought me to the level I am now. So I'm very thankful. And I want to say that truly, I have really learned a lot, and I've enjoyed all my life because I've been guided by my Maker. You know, once you grow up and you recognize that you are not of yourself, you have somebody above you, it checks on you. So much so that your life will not be the type that you have to regret, but you enjoy it. At this age, I sit down and when I recall, I take my memory down to the lane and I start thinking of myself when I was a child. I look at myself and I say, and I was able to pass this. Then another stage. Then I saw myself, and it came and passed, stage by stage. It's so wonderful the way God made us human beings. It's so wonderful that you just need to realize that in a life, you are here for a purpose. And when you fulfill that purpose in your old age, truly you rejoice. When you sleep, you remember some of the things that gave you so much joy, and you are happy because there's less to be done now. It's more of resting and doing work casually, not so much as when you were younger, and you have time to think about your life. That will be the time that you start to either regret or rejoice, feel good. If your life has been fulfilled, you continue to feel happy. But if your life has not been, then that's the time for you to now start worrying and hope that you would go back to it again and change. But again, it's too late.
And it's remarkable that you still teach at 90, that you still engage students formally and teach. Yes. Why do you have to do that, and what's the experience like?
Special grace. I didn't even know that I'm older, as you are saying now. It's just that sometimes my body is heavy, and sometimes my spirit, I become a little bit more forgetful than I used to. Sometimes I mix up the dates and all that, but then that is just a normal thing that you remember and you laugh over it. At that old age, the thing that makes you so happy is that you already build up your life solidly and on the right path. You have nothing to regret, even if you have put things right before now, so that you have all the good memories to enjoy. And this is where I feel that it's a high privilege for me that right from my early age, I was able to recognize this great friend of mine, that I wrote a book in celebration of him allowing me to live 90 years. This milestone is appreciated, not only by me, my children, my associates.
Can
we see the book? We hear you have a lot of activities lined up, and including this book.
This is one of it. It's just this is just the dummy copy.
Okay.
And it is live with my best friend, and it has been joyful all the year, all the time.
Yeah.
So I am really delighted that this is just a dummy copy
of the copy. So what activities do you have, or your children, your grandchildren have lined up for you to celebrate this milestone?
Well, this milestone is, we hope to celebrate all the documentary that I've had here.
Okay.
I've documented my life from birth to date. And it's not easy, but I was able to pick on those areas that were outstanding in my life and document them. And truly, there is a lot in that book. You will see that this friend of mine has done great things with the body he has brought into this world.
And what are the other activities lined up for your 90th?
After the documentation of this book, we will launch it. And we will launch it because we need the resources to carry on with the legacies and the project I have in mind. And at this age, I can't do any business. I don't even know how to do business. My business is education, teaching, and this is where I pray I will end up. Doing teaching. I don't even mind God picking me up teaching in the classroom because it's my passion.
Yes. But what's the project about?
The project is extension of the secondary school. We have gotten the primary section, now it's ongoing, and the secondary section is just on the way, and we have just started building the admin block.
In Lantang?
Here in Abuja.
Oh, in Abuja.
Well, we have one in Lantang. That one is going on. And the project is all about schools, education, skill acquisition, anything that will educate or will touch the life of people. That's what all my project is all about.
Yeah, I like the fact that you quoted, you know, the 2 Corinthians 7:14, and you said that the Lord had promised that if his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and pray and seek his face and turn from their wicked ways, then will he hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land. Based on God's words, we believe that he will fulfill his promise and heal our land.
Correct.
Quite interesting. Why did you make that quote?
Well, it is a verse that has been helping me a lot, because when we go astray, we are all brought into the world by the Almighty. There is not a single life that brought themselves here without the agreement of the Almighty. You agree with me on that, do you? Do you agree?
Of course I do.
Yes, all of us are God's handwork. And therefore, we have a purpose to fulfill. And some of these situations we find ourselves in this world will make us go off the track of what God wants in our life. And when that happens, then God will get angry with us and make things not to work. I remember a story from Germany. There are some people some women who call themselves the Canaan sisters. You know, they are just there for doing God's work, and in fact, everything was like they have their own world there. And they do things according to their, you know, their ability. They have their own machines, they have their own television program, they have their farms. They are like self-contained women. Then, when they were not in agreement with each other, everything started to go off. Their what do you call it? The printing machine stopped working. The potatoes were eaten by worms. Bees were no more giving the honey because the Almighty is angry with them. And so the leader had to say, come, there's something wrong because this is unusual. Now they sat down, reasoned amongst themselves, and they discovered, yes, they were not living well with each other. And you know, for that, they started praying for forgiveness. And for that reason, the woman in charge of them said, we must never be wicked to each other because God is not God's purpose for us. Then suddenly, when they prayed and asked for forgiveness, just on its own, the machine started working, the potatoes were producing, the bees were bringing honey, things were working well again. God has a hand in everything happening to us in this world. When we are right, he blesses us, and when we go off, we have the punishment, and then we start to cry. If we cry truly in our hearts and ask for forgiveness, he will forgive us, and he will make things right again. Indeed. So the example of the German woman today is something that I want us to learn from.
And since you're in education, you know, through the years, long years, what have you seen change in our education, and what would you like to see back in our education, or, you know, taken out?
Well, as a young girl, we grew up with no schools. Then I saw schools starting in churches, church buildings. The children would come in the afternoon to start learning to read and write. And that was how we started. Then later on, they started building classes where they can contain people according to their categories of growth and abilities. You know, like primaries, later on went on to secondary. I saw it. So when somebody said, oh, mommy, you are 90 years, that means you are older than Nigeria. That means you saw Nigeria from its birth. Yes. And it's true. In a way, it's true. Because I saw this development, and I saw how the world, the Nigerian world was gradually changing. Before, I came from Lantang, as you know, and it's a village, and I grew up in that village, and truly you discover that it was all the same ethnic group. Then, later on, we saw some new people arriving. They were the Hausas, the Yorubas, the Igbos, they were arriving. Interaction started, and we loved them because they bring different culture from our own. And we used to really embrace and love each other. We live happily with each other. There was no sectional differences like that, or saying, this is not me, this is, no, we were all the same. Yeah. Then later on, as we grew up, we see how we expanded. Education now became, girls have to go somewhere and receive education. Usually girls were exempted. Me, I found great difficulty because my parents said, since I could read the Bible, that was enough for me. I don't need to go further. Go and get married. I was only good for marriage.
But you insisted.
But the one who brought me into the world for the purpose said, stick to your desire of the heart. I wanted to be educated. So I took the exam to go to Gindri, and I was one of the few girls that was privileged to attend school in Gindri. And in Gindri, I saw how we were taught by the whites, the Europeans who were the missionaries. We were exposed to all their learning. We were taught national anthem. We were singing the British national anthem, God Save Our Gracious King, that time. Then later on, it changed to Queen. And
now it's back to King.
And it's now back. But now, Nigeria has changed. I saw the change of the pulling down, the bringing down of the Union Jack, that is the British flag, and the raising of the Nigerian flag. We watched it and we clapped and we rejoiced. We are now of our own. We were really happy to see that Nigerians are now going to rule themselves, and they are going to have a country where it is all their own. Nobody will rule them.
Okay, I need some tips from you on a final note. You know, how have you been able to maintain your physical and mental stage at this age? And you know, tell us. We need to learn from you.
I have a friend there. This book that I said, my best friend. That my best friend is still with me. You know.
Yes.
And you need to discover that best friend of mine that was guiding me, and he's helping me up to today. Because if I have difficulty, I ask him and he directs me. I talk, he gives me the answer, and I obey. This is how I run my life. And I want to say truly, this friend of mine has never deserted me in any situation. All the situations I've witnessed, I have witnessed so many, political lives. I've seen military life in Nigeria. I have seen all the other, let's say, how we started with the something like the Stone Age, where there was no farming. Farming was used by hoes, you know, in those days.
Now it's mechanized.
Gradually, and now we use mechanized system. So all these are the things that I saw, and I store them in my memory. Apart from that, I continue. I want to do things and I want to achieve them. I don't want to be associated with failure. This is me. And therefore, I try to do the right thing in my life. I didn't like to marry just anyhow. Neither do I want to do an occupation that wasn't mine. I was just attracted one time by seeing those nurses who dress well, and I wanted to be a nurse. Well, actually, my nature is not in nursing. I wouldn't have made be a good nurse, but teaching is what God has brought me.
Okay, just on a final note, what would you like to share? What message would you like to share with your family, friends, and well-wishers on your big day?
Well, hard work. Just as I was, you know, that was giving me a lot of favor. Because as I travel, I wouldn't know whether this is my home or this is not my home. I still work in the home that wherever I go. I help them with the sweeping, I help them with washing dishes. I do all the core house work. The core work that a mother does, I do it whether it's my home or another. And that was what I was in school. I was doing everything with all my strength, and I tried to do it well. And that was giving me a lot of favor. And the houses I go to, they will be putting extra meat for me. They will be looking after me in a special way because of the way I work in their houses. Hard work pays. Secondly, work with integrity. Not just work hard and just be anything. I had wanted to see, and all my life I don't want to lose my integrity for anything. Whether it be money or it be some kind of pleasure or what, no. Anything that will make me lose my senses, I don't want it. I keep off all these drugs that people go in for so that they will be lively and that. No to that. I know that's not my friend. I keep off. So by doing that, my memory, God is in it, and I talk with Him, and every time we are together, and that helps me a lot.
Prof.
So the memory is still active.
Prof, we'd like to thank you very much for your time on the program. And we'd like to congratulate you ahead of your birthday tomorrow.
Thank you.
It's not easy to hit 90. And we thank your best friend on your behalf as well.
Is the one
and we wish you well.
Thank
and we hope to see you again at 100.
Yes,
we do. That one is left for my best friend.
Amen. Professor Mary Nnawola Owen, first male professor in Northern Nigeria. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
And you are my
birthday mate. Happy birthday to me too. Yes, thank you so. It's been a pleasure.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
I bless Nigerians.
Amen. It's been a pleasure having you.
Nigerians will be released from their suffering.
All right.
Amen.
The blessings from God to bless Nigeria.
Amen.
Thank you.
And that has been Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you very much for watching. Tomorrow is another day. Let's keep the date. I am Victor Azu.
And I am Jumoy Yusuf.